so.
Pay their staff, at least £10 an hour that do value and understand that, because if you've got a high staff turnover, then that adds cost anyway for a business, and the quality of the service that you provide is greatly increased when you've got good staff retention, good flexible working, and excellent employment practices. And we want to learn from the best. I haven't come up with these ideas from nowhere. I've stolen them from the best employers that are the great example, and we want to spread that across the board.
Your leader, Sir Keir Starmer, he wanted to get rid of one member, one vote, and go back to the old system of electoral college, didn't he? A third by the MPs, a third unions, a third party activists. It's a pretty poor start, isn't it? And it sort of brings into question at the very beginning of conference, in fact, before it's even begun, his authority and his leadership, his judgment questioned once again, because this has been turned back, hasn't it? This will not be put in its current form. The leader's suggestion on how to elect the leader, it won't go forward to the NEC yet. What's going on? What's the very latest?
Well, what Keir wanted to do is start a conversation, and that's absolutely right, about, how do we get in the best possible place so that we can form the next government. And we've been looking at carrying out a number of reviews, both internally and externally, focused on how we do that, and it was absolutely right for Keir to do that. And he said it was a conversation, and, those proposals, I'm told that the Electoral College is now not coming forward, but actually there was a number of proposals that were going forward. And I'm sure, conference is always about, for debate. We do have our argy-bargies at conference. It wouldn't be a conference without that. And, I think Keir has started that conversation, and it's right that Keir leads that conversation. But leadership is also about listening, and it's also about taking on board what other people say. So I think it's actually a great example of how you can do things right and come to a consensus and then move us forward. And I think he's done that exceptionally well.
But it has been seen as a failure, hasn't it? Because the trade unions, he's met them. And the unions have said they're not happy, so it doesn't go to the NEC. So something that he wanted, he didn't get once again. It seems to be a constant fight for Sir Keir Starmer to be seen as an authoritative leader who's getting what he wants.
Well, what Keir wanted to do was to have that conversation, so he's managed to achieve that. Keir didn't go in there and say, this is what I want from the desk and this is what I'm going to get. What Keir wanted was a conversation about how do we present ourselves in the best possible way, and recognise that we did lose the general election and we lost it badly, and we have to look at ourselves and change. We have to be what the voters want us to be, and he started that conversation. I think it's right that we have those conversations.
But isn't it right that he wants nobody like Jeremy Corbyn or perhaps John McDonnell anywhere near the leadership again, because that was a failure? Isn't that what he wanted? Isn't that what you want?
Well, not at all. No, Jeremy. Keir Starmer was elected on the one member, one vote. So Keir was elected and had a huge mandate. So I think to suggest that he doesn't want the democratic processes within the Labour Party is just untrue. What he wants is to get us to a place where we're looking at ourselves and saying, are we in the best possible place we can be to form the next government? And that takes a lot of, it does take us looking at ourselves deeply and saying, how do we improve ourselves? And I think that's right that Keir has that conversation. It doesn't mean everyone agrees on the way forward, but I do think it's right that Keir leads us in terms of saying, I want us to look at these issues because they are important.
What do you want?
What do I want?
Turn right after 300 yards and follow the 8713.
This isn't about Labour Party members. This is about how we can change the country for the better.
No, but you want to get rid of one member, one vote, and go back to the old system. Is that what you wanted yesterday? Are you behind Keir Starmer in his efforts to do it that way?
I was behind Keir Starmer in having
turn next right.
Keir wanted to do, and I think he's achieved that. And actually, one of the most important things for me is getting beyond us looking at ourselves and getting to look into the voters and saying, do you know what? This government has completely failed you. They've left you. They're cutting universal credit, they're putting up national insurance, they're making it difficult for people. We've got these problems that people are facing every single day, and we should be talking about them.
I understand that, but
follow the road for 21 miles.
As an independent MP will be in Brighton this week.
So
and if you don't mind, have a listen to 20 seconds of John McDonnell, and here's what he had to say about Mr. Corbyn and him at conference this week.
I do a lot of
there's a
fringe
petrol
meetings,
station.
but
Oh, yeah.
I'll most probably go in the conference chamber almost certainly at some
Oh.
stage. It depends on the nature of some of those
Didn't get in?
debates, but I've got a heavy schedule of fringe
Oh, he's
meetings all the way
getting
through, so is Jeremy. And what we'll be
What's
trying to
coming
do
out?
is engage with members, encourage some of the debates. The big focus is on climate
133.
change, obviously, but
Okay,
also
then
there's
put
issue
it
how
up
we
here.
tackle poverty, how do we ensure that we're addressing some of the real bread and butter issues that working people face in this country.
And Jeremy's going to be in the main. He'll go into the main chamber as well.
Oh, well, up to Jeremy, I would have thought so, but I certainly will be. And what will happen on the fringe, you'll see, is
Oh my
enthusiastic debate around the policy issue. But if Keir pursues this obsession with rule changes, the reality is a lot of the fringe then will be taken up with that.
Until it's clicked. Oh. Shouldn't it follow? Yeah. Buy me a Pepsi, please. Pepsi? Mm-hmm. £15 I put in.
Okay. They couldn't take any more.
Mm-mm.
Okay, thank you.
Tank is as full as ever.
Yeah.
Should take us straight to London.
Deliveries hitting food and fuel supplies. It says petrol supplies are ample after drivers started queuing. Esso, BP and Tesco forecourts are all reporting issues with deliveries. These drivers say it's
Now they can
incredibly
try.
frustrating.
I've been trying to get petrol since about midnight, and I've literally been driving around all over London since, well, for the last 4 or 5 hours. There's been around every petrol station is either shut or there's a queue on the few which are open.
It's ridiculous. I don't know why there's all this panic buying. I mean, I'm down to my last 32 miles.
The family of a primary school teacher who was murdered in southeast London say they've been left shattered. Hundreds gathered for a vigil in memory of Sabina Nessa last night. The 28-year-old's body was found in a park in Kidbrooke last weekend. Jamie Klinger from Reclaim These Streets says nothing much has changed since the death of Sarah Everard in March.
When there was all of the media and all of the coverage after Sarah, everyone talked about it being a big watershed moment, and lots of promises were made about street harassment being criminalized, about misogyny being made a hate crime, and about all this money being spent to make our streets safer. But when you actually look at it, nothing has changed in those 6 months. Everything's been dialed back a little bit. Once the spotlight's off, a lot of those promises come to nothing.
A 12-year-old boy has died after being seriously injured at an indoor ski centre in the West Midlands. Emergency services were called to the Snowdome in Tamworth just after 6:30 yesterday evening. Labour wants to increase the minimum wage to at least £10 an hour. The party will set out its so-called New Deal for Workers at its annual conference later. It insists improving wages, job security and rights at work will improve productivity as well as the health of employees. And Rory McIlroy has been dropped from a Ryder Cup session for the first time in his career as Europe attempt to come back from 6-2 down against the USA. It's the biggest lead the Americans have ever had after day one. McIlroy had a disappointing opening day at Whistling Straits and he's been left out of the foursomes. The weather, cloudy for most with some showers in the west, some warm sunshine developing later, a high of 22 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Rebecca Cook.
As a parent, you want to protect your kids. You know you can't keep them wrapped up in cotton wool forever, but there are some things that you can do, like keeping their vaccinations up to date. Some childhood diseases are on the rise again, like measles and whooping cough, and they can cause severe illness. Childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. So, are your child's vaccinations up to date? To find out more, search online for NHS vaccinations.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Andrew Carson.
NHS wants to see you 6 minutes past 9, really. Chemotherapy rationed in NHS staff crisis. Listen, you don't have chemotherapy for fun, for God's sake. And listen to this story, this is beyond belief. NHS cancer patients in some areas have had their chemotherapy halted because there are not enough staff to deliver it. What? Where do you start? Sufferers with advanced forms of the disease are being denied the treatment so that scarce resources can be directed towards those with a chance of survival. Now, we all know in our heart of hearts, and especially if you have been under the care of the NHS, that at times it comes down to a decision that they make in the NHS. How? I suppose we don't always know. But resources are finite. But on chemotherapy for potentially terminal cancer. So this rationing, which one of England's largest trusts has admitted is taking place, could deprive patients with incurable cancer of extra time at levels. Yeah, no, it could kill them. That's what it could do. It could kill them. This is Nottingham University Hospital NHS Trust, NUH, said it was urgently trying to fill vacant posts and hoped to offer chemotherapy to all who needed it next month. This is where we're living now. The warning follows a report predicting that even if oncology departments boost the number of patients they see by 5%, the backlog will take more than a decade to clear. Experts believe 90% 19,500 people are living with undiagnosed cancer because of the pandemic. Well, hold on a second. It's not because of the pandemic, it's because of the way we reacted to the pandemic. That's the truth, isn't it? Let's find out more about this story, which frightens me. Tom Powles is director of Barts Cancer Centre at NHS Barts Health NHS Trust. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
This put the fear of God into me. So, frankly, people who need medical treatment to keep them alive are not getting it.
Well, let me start by just giving you some reassurance that while this story which may be true in Nottingham, I suspect that's the exception to the rule. Certainly, Barts Health and other cancer centres in London, that's not the case of the colleagues who I've spoken to. I'm the director of the cancer centre there. So the first thing that's reassurance for your listeners and for the London population is those people who need chemotherapy are able to get it. Our current waiting times are no longer than normal, and we give people chemotherapy who need it immediately.
Okay, well, that's reassuring where you are, but not if you're in the wrong part of the country.
So, the statement that you made previously, which I think is really interesting, is two slightly different issues. The first is how we develop this backlog associated with the pandemic, and the second is what's happened to the staff who were previously working in the chemotherapy units who are no longer there. And those two issues are somewhat separate. They are a little bit in as much as I think that during the last 18 months there has been a lot of pressure on staff within the NHS, and I think there have been large numbers of people who may have decided to leave, and I can see why chemotherapy nurses may be in that group. And filling those posts is difficult because it takes training and time to replace those posts, and therefore you can get shortages of staff very quickly along those lines. And I think that's part of what's happened here at this particular
Do you mind if I just put this to you? In March last year, NHS England authorised hospitals to ration cancer services to patients with the greatest chance of survival if the system became overwhelmed owing to COVID. And this has actually now come to pass. This has come to pass.
It's a shame you can't actually pick up on the video how low the clouds are. Because all now we're actually driving through it.
Yeah. That's how high we are. It's really making me feel
so crazy.
all my head is tight.
It reminds me of when we were in Grenada. And Uncle Leonard took us at the top of that old volcano place. We were actually in the clouds then, isn't it? Yeah. But it's a shame because this, all now, look at it. All here we're driving through.
Yeah. Wow, it's really thick up here.
The Great British public made the decision that they were going to try and protect the NHS, so people still.
Because they were told to.
Yeah, I think so. But I think
and you can't get hold of a GP, and I don't care what GPs say. The fact is, you can't. And I know that GPs are saying that they're very, very push, but a lot of people have not been referred who should have been referred.
because I don't think it's going to, I hope, it's certainly not going to be a problem in the future. I'm very confident that we will be able to give patients the chemotherapy we need, but will we have enough people to do the diagnostics, the pathology, the radiology? My fear is we may not have that. So this may be the canary in the mine, which actually comes into a wider cancer problem over the next 18 months. We need more staff in these key areas, and there's lots of reasons why we don't have that pool of staff in the UK anymore.
Yeah, what is it? So what is it? Are we going to say the word Brexit again, or is it the pandemic, or is it the conditions, or is it, you know, is it pay? Is it what is that?
Well, I think there are two.
I know these are, you know,
complicated issues.
Yeah.
I think there are 2 or 3 parts to it. We have to make the jobs attractive and well paid, because in the environment we live in, we know that people have choice. There is a lack of staff, nursing individuals in key groups at the moment. There's also, by the way, a lack of radiologists, a lack of pathologists, a lack of oncologists. At our hospital at the moment, we're trying to employ more radiotherapy doctors. We're really struggling. We've got adverts out and people aren't applying. That's not because we're not a good hospital, but because there aren't that many doctors out there currently, because we're all working hard in other areas. So there are some key areas where we're struggling. Clearly, if we had more open borders and people are able to, like the lorry drivers, people are able to come here and do that work, we can fill those posts more easily.
Are radiologists and oncologists on the shortage of or occupation shortage list that they're talking about for the HGV drivers? Because I mean, you're telling me that we've got a shortage of radiologists, oncologists, and various others.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm certainly not a politician. But
no, I understand. I'm not trying to drag you down.
I'll do that over quite a lot.
Thank you very much indeed. Director of the Barts Cancer Centre at the
Radio signals struggling in the mountain.
Look at the cloud
companies going bust.
ahead again.
Not enough radiologists. And now we've got chemotherapy that is not it's being rationed. It's being stopped for people who need it. Universal credit, the £20 uplift about to be taken away. It is just one thing after another, isn't it? But it's always the personal. And in a moment I'll be speaking to Craig Russell. He's the co-founder of Catch Up With Cancer. And his daughter Kelly died of cancer after her treatment was stopped due to the pandemic and our response to it. Do stay tuned on NBC for that. Next news headlines with Rebecca Cook.
It's reported ministers will temporarily Hundreds of people have gathered for a candlelit vigil in memory of murdered primary school teacher Sabina Nessa in southeast London.
assure you. You do your shopping list. You can't afford to forget anything.
But the next month, you need.
Can you imagine? But it just shows how much we take for granted. Because like, we can walk to so many supermarkets and corner shops, and here it's like you most certainly got to drive to a shop.
Yeah. We've got the fruit and veg market as well.
Yeah.
Right on the high street, so we're lucky.
Whereas they don't have.
There's nothing here.
But I get the community spirit would be awesome, you know, in these smaller communities. You need to have that community spirit.
They can't be short of meat here, but I haven't seen much of it really in the supermarkets, apart from them very big chickens that I thought was turkeys.
I can see myself becoming vegetarian at some point.
You know.
No, sometimes you don't feel like meat, innit? Honestly. Fish I don't mind so much. I can eat fish all the time, as long as it was boneless and skinless.
You got a lot to eat, but if you want to go back to Africa.
I didn't eat any fish in Ghana, did I? I don't think I ate fish in Ghana, funny enough. Because I'm not so fond of the dry fish, you know? They tend to have a lot of that preserved.
We only T's and C's.
But I wouldn't
There's
mind
nothing
if it was filleted and all that. Because who wants to eat and be spitting bones out all the time?
or delving into your secret stash of dips, then dunking a McNugget in 3 of your favourite sauces. Because what you do in your home is your business. There's nothing quite like a McDelivery. Order now on the McDonald's
just went left.
or via Uber Eats and Just Eat. Participating restaurants only.
Mate, we've got 21 mile on this road and this truck is in front of us. Jeez.
And we're still going up the bloody mountain again, isn't it?
And we can't overtake. Well, I wouldn't anyway.
Struck gold in the moments between the more.
No way I'm overtaking.
Get a £20 free bonus on sign up. Are you in? New. Terms apply. 18 plus. Pay responsibly. BeGambleAware.org.
Andrew Castle on LBC.
This morning.
Anytime this was London, hey,
And it just comes to
he would have been
patients and
overtaken
scenarios
by
of
now.
chemotherapy won't
But we
take
can't
because
chance
they're
it on these little
start
roads.
to deliver sufferers with advanced
Oh
forms of
my
disease,
days.
being denied the
This
treatments
drive
and
is killing
scarce
me.
resources can
And this is a 60 miles an hour road, you know. But I don't see how it's possible to go 60 miles an hour. I wonder if people actually drive that fast. They probably do.
I'm sure they do.
The locals are probably used to it, isn't it? I'm so excited to see a sign that says London.
I'm right behind you.
Oh my days.
very sorry for you.
We came, we saw, we enjoyed, now it's time to go home.
That was with stage 4. Multiple major surgeries.
We're just going downhill now.
The clinical trials, everything you can think of. Because all life expended.
rested.
You're making me on as well.
I slept very well.
Me too.
get honey from villages, I think it's nicer, isn't it? Than when you buy it in the supermarket. Queues at the petrol stations here are modest. It's not like going crazy like what we're hearing in London. Look at the police station. Actually,
Oh my God.
looks like a little house. Oh dear. Imagine these people sitting in that pub already. I don't know how these people can drink so early. that's hard work, isn't it?
Yeah, because
You constantly have to use
set on it.
everything. You I couldn't. No. Wow. A lot of sheep.
Prepare to turn left soon.
Oh, they're going left too.
Turn left after 300 yards. Turn next left.
This person quick.
It's taking a fire.
Follow the road for 9 miles. Follow the road for 9 miles.
It's not yet returned to work. I think
Society up. He's a very forensic sort of interviewer. Well, it doesn't quite connect. Would you like to see it differently?
You don't need a gym membership out here at all. There's so many places to walk. first time we go away and we didn't go to afternoon tea, innit?
Thank you for calling in advance. I'll tell you that.
No worries, no worries. She was later on diagnosed with hidden reflux. She was then hospitalised a third time by our ambulance because she had a bug and she was sleeping and she became unresponsive. Her sugar level was really, really low. And then at the moment what happens is that she coughs until sometimes she's sick. And like last night she was eating her food, she coughs a little bit and then she throws up. And it can be very random and it can be very unexpected. So back in July we got a referral for paediatrics and we were told on that call that we'd actually already been referred before in April, but we'd never had any letter. I was told by the GP was an emergency appointment, so I was thinking basically, okay, in the next couple of weeks I'm going to get something.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
After 6 weeks we had nothing. I called the GP surgery and they told us that emergency paediatric appointments with the NHS had an 8-month wait.
Oh my God.
So what do I do?
You go private, John. That's what you do. You try to go private. reports have come.
You can get your stolen or damaged tech reports from Kate. Cover and clean limits apply Monday to Friday, 8 AM to 6 PM, except bank holidays. Underwritten by UK Insurance.
Eligibility and tap.
At 9:50.
This must be a little town, isn't it?
For petrol when we don't need to, even though the government said don't queue up. How come, Professor Scott? Good morning.
Good morning. I think that the issue here is the use of the term panic isn't particularly helpful in helping us to understand why.
Right. Because panic.
Prepare to keep left soon and continue to follow the 8712.
Service stations on the M25 has run out. There's clearly a spike in demand, but the issue is, why is that spike in demand there? Is it because people are panicking, or is it because of the more issues here that's being fueled in?
Keep left after 400 yards and continue to follow the 8712. Keep left after 150 yards. Follow the road for 5 miles.
selfishness when actually it's not.
Well, but a lot of people are queuing to get petrol, which is why you're worried now, isn't it? A lot of people are queuing up, even though they're saying they've got 15 miles left in the tank or 20 or 30. We know full well that people are, maximising because what's ahead is slightly uncertain.
Yeah, but when did that start?
Why?
It started with news stories, didn't it? It started with a news story.
Well, actually, it might have.
I'm telling you, do my head, do.
Every time I think, okay,
round and round and
out to
round.
the valley, up up
God, I
here.
better go down.
And the roads are so windy, like, oh my
That's the
goodness.
point. Underneath this is the assumption that that's irrational, emotional panic. It's not. It's sensible, meaningful reaction to the idea that if you can't get fuel when you need it, you need to go out and get it.
So listen, when you can't get any petrol and you're by the side of the road on the way to Pembrokeshire, give us a buzz. Yeah, nice one, Prof. Take it easy. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate the contribution, Professor Clifford Stock, Professor of Social Psychology at Keele University. 9:55. Let's return to the medical stories. Last 3 or 4 minutes or so. Chemotherapy rationed in NHS staff crisis just prompted the question: what has been the delivery of medical services to you? What's it been like trying to get a hold? I mean, we just heard that John was in Berkhamsted, whose daughter Esme is having to wait 8 months for paediatrics. I mean, she's got some needs that really need to be met, and it's 8 months, and it's repeated again and again and again. Some chemotherapy being stopped. Tim's in Leeds. Hello, Tim.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi.
So I'm a nurse. I've previously worked in cancer care. I'm working in intensive care at the moment. So one point that I'd like to make is that generally cancer services are pretty well funded. They have a lot of charities surrounding them. They tend to get swanky new buildings and tend to attract a lot of staff. It's generally a really good place to work. It attracts a lot of nurses and doctors as well. And I think that if this sort of thing is happening in cancer care, then it's a really stark representation of what's happening everywhere else. Because the popular places to work are no longer popular, and the staffing crisis there. There's big problems in things like elderly care, diabetes, general medical wards.
There's a lot of these birds on the road, isn't it?
Yeah.
Specialties, so people don't go there to work. It's a good place to get sorted.
And they're not flying, you've got to slow down for them.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Tim. Thank you for making it. Why are people leaving the service? Why are they looking elsewhere? Why are they getting out?
I think a lot of it is just there's always been staffing problems in the NHS. It's always been there, and people are tired. Every department's had different strains through COVID.
They're not moving, you've got to slow down for them. What kind of birds are these?
Coming to a bit of a peak where people are leaving the profession, people are retiring, there's not as many people coming into nursing as there previously was. I think that will improve the next couple of years.
Did you need a degree to become a nurse?
I did, so I actually trained at Nottingham and worked with placement for the cancer sector at Nottingham. And so I qualified about five years ago now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Tim, I hope you're happy in the. I hope you're not going anywhere, are you?
I'm actually moving to Australia tomorrow to go and work there.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm coming back.
How are you? So you're one of the few people that can get into Australia.
It's been a big pain, I can tell you that. It's been a very expensive nightmare. But
Oh man.
I am
Yeah.
I'm
But
going back to the NHS though.
which city are you going to?
At Melbourne.
Oh, have you been there before?
I've never been to Australia.
Yeah,
It's just a bit of a career break.
And they're on lockdown at the moment, aren't they, Melbourne?
Oh my
They're
gosh,
coming
these
out of it
birds.
in a couple of weeks though. So when I finish my hotel,
I don't want to run them over, you know what I'm saying?
it'll open up thankfully.
And,
But what kind of birds
I hope
don't
that's okay.
fly when
Listen, I tell
they
you
see a
what,
car?
would you promise me you give us a call back sometime? Don't forget us here, and give us a call and let us know how Melbourne is. I'm fascinated
Somebody
by
run
their,
over one day.
their reaction to COVID. I must say.
I had 2 weeks in a hotel room doing nothing.
You got time to call me then? Come on.
Exactly.
Take care, Tim. Safe flight. 9:59. That's it for me. I should do it all again between 7 and 10 tomorrow. Coming up at 1 o'clock. It's Magic. No.
they're pheasants. Those are the ones they shoot when they doing the fox hunt and stuff like that. Yeah, no wonder they're not.
See the one that was on the road there.
That's probably why they're not moving. Yeah, I wouldn't be eating them though.
Well, you don't know what you're eating when you eat your chicken.
What's your experience? Who do you blame? How would you fix it? And we're in Germany for the most important election in a generation after 16 years.
It's quite expensive to buy those, you know.
Pheasants.
Yeah.
You miss out. Tell us.
I think when things like that hit the supermarket, I'm just gonna start eating fish and prawns and things like that. You know, when it becomes the norm to see, you know, like people eat the red squirrel, innit? And they eat pigeons and certain parts of the UK. But those are things you go to certain shops only and you get. The squirrels, the pigeons, pheasants and stuff like that. And rabbits, yeah. Only certain parts of the country you can just go in, like the local farm shop, and you get that. So that's what I'm saying. If you start being able to buy those meat in the supermarket, that's it. I'm done with meat. Because if it's that normal, I'm just gonna stick with fish. Because can you imagine? I don't want a rabbit next to my chicken or something like some funny meat. You know? No. Can you imagine you go around someone's house and they cook rabbit curry?
To be held for a Metropolitan Police officer shot and killed at a custody centre in South London. A 1-minute silence will be held as
actually, funny enough, you say that. When I was in Malta, they did have rabbit stew on the menu because it's a delicacy in
turn left soon
in Malta.
875.
I did remember they did have rabbit stew.
In the West Midlands. Our reporter Lindsay Alder has the details.
The 12-year-old suffered serious injuries during an activity at the Snowdome in Tamworth yesterday evening. Ambulance crew
turn left after 400 yards and follow the 875.
Staffordshire Police are asking the public not to speculate or share videos and photos of what happened on social media. The Health and Safety Executive are investigating.
Court documents in the US show Prince Andrew has been properly served with a sexual assault lawsuit. Virginia Giuffre seeking damages after alleging the Duke of York sexually assaulted her when she was a teenager. He denies all of the accusations against him. And Anthony Joshua will put his heavyweight to work.
Turn next left.
Oh yeah, tonight is that fight with Anthony Joshua.
Part of the pandemic. The weather cloudy for most with some from Global. Rebecca Cook.
Follow the road for 4 miles.
Carlo easily assess applicants' essential skills. I need Indeed. Indeed you do. Screen for quality candidates using skills tests to make sure they have the experience your job needs. To start hiring, visit Indeed.com/try today. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Matt Fryer. A very good morning to all of you. Petrol queues, waiting for an hour or longer to fill your tank, petrol stations closed, patience running out, frustration and blood pressure rising. I'm not talking Venezuela, I'm talking Barnes. The government says there's nothing to worry about. We have the fuel stocks. The petrol giants are saying only a tiny minority of stations have been affected.
Because basically that's what's happening in Venezuela, isn't it?
Or colleagues in the northeast or mates in the Midlands. Humbly and anecdotally, I would say there is a
some of these people are so dramatic.
As a stench of diesel, but is it about panic? Or does the sight of queues on television create those queues? All the autumns are coming to roost at once. Top of the list, the shortage of HGV drivers. An estimated 50,000 British ones stopped working. Perhaps low wages, perhaps long hours, probably the pandemic too.
I'm so glad
Another
I work from home,
20,000
I'm telling
never
you.
came back from the EU. It's so much easier to
I don't have to worry about driving to no
Italy
office.
than from Italy to the UK. Training new drivers for difficult licenses is slower than ever, thanks to the COVID backlog. There is talk of a faster, simpler test, but I, for one, really don't want untrained HGV drivers.
And really, once I have internet, I can actually work any part of the country
5,000 temporary visas
or any
suggested.
part of the world that has internet anyway. So
It compromises
I
the
could
government's whole immigration
practically
policy,
be on
but for
holiday
heaven's sake, Merry Christmas to
as
you.
long as I'm logged into my laptop.
Then
I'm
there's all the
fine.
other stuff, an imminent end to the furlough scheme, a rise in taxes, the cut in universal credit, and a broader cost of living crisis thanks to rising inflation and rocketing fuel costs.
That's the only thing,
Yeah, you need 2 screens.
Winter before the leaves of autumn have even
That's
fallen.
not an option.
Pandemic really hasn't helped, but let's be honest, nor has Brexit. And what about that lightning trade deal with America that we were promised? Well, as we found out this week, it's been parked somewhere near the Azores, mid-Atlantic, in transit. Pickers just isn't enough. So start growing your own.
Well, for the last 4 or 5 hours. So, closed petrol stations.
The signal is so bad.
You're camping, so petrol's crucial.
Hey, I've got electric, so I do need it. A lot of these probably don't. They just join the queue, and I don't think that's right. And I hope the government sorts something out very quickly.
It's ridiculous. I don't know why there's all this panic buying. To visit my customers, etc. So why are people up this time of morning, Saturday morning? I mean, normally the traffic's quite quiet, so I wouldn't be getting up at this time. It'll be another hour, but I've had to, otherwise I'm not going to be able to get to my customers at this time.
Doesn't bode well, Matt. I saw a van being pushed by 2 men all the way along this bus lane where about, I'd say, lots of anger as they're trying to...
After 500 yards, leave the roundabout at the second exit and continue to follow the A75.
Everywhere trying to find a place to get petrol today. I also spoke to some of the clerks on the forecourt.
Leave the roundabout at the second exit. Follow the road for 2 miles.
Station open. People who are working today, driving vans, driving cabs, saying they need to get somewhere, taking kids to university, etc. People who actually need it today to go about. But there's a few people I've spoken to along here who are effectively saying, well, I saw it on TV, I saw it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, and I felt like I needed to come down here. But of course, it is important to stress there isn't a shortage of fuel, there's a shortage of drivers.
James Goodison there in Brixton for us. I hope you're on your bicycle this morning. The question to you is, what's it like out there? Reinforcing phenomenon. If you join it, used to be a joke in the Soviet Union in East Germany. If you see a queue, you just get into it, you line up because there might be something good at the end of it. So what is the real...
At the ambulances, we're getting low on fuel just because, you know, we go for miles and miles and miles, and we go to refuel, and it's delaying us to get the fuel. That's then delaying us to respond to 999 calls to help people.
What's happened to you? Have you been sitting in your ambulance waiting?
After 500 yards, leave the roundabout at the first exit and continue to follow the A75.
It was all because everyone was queuing to get into the petrol garage.
But so far, you've not had to sit in your ambulance in a petrol station waiting to fill your tank.
Yes.
Leave the roundabout at the first exit.
Jobs. Well, I've got colleagues currently that can't come to work because they've run out of fuel waiting to get into a petrol garage. So it's causing shortages all around, and the emergency services are struggling just because we can't actually get anywhere because we're running out of fuel. And it's not because there is...
After 500 yards, leave the roundabout at the first exit and continue to follow the A75.
People waiting to some extent, I presume. I mean, maybe you aren't, but on average, ambulances are. How much worse is that situation now as a result of this fuel shortage?
Leave the roundabout at the first exit.
Honestly, yesterday, for example, I delayed our call easily, but our response time by about 15 minutes on its own. And that's just trying to get from petrol garage. And that's just us. You know, I can't speak out to them.
Follow the road for 1 mile.
My friends, from my bosses, it's just ridiculous. And staff to actually try to respond to incidents and get through the traffic and the congestion it's causing. It's just mad.
That's tough.
I blame each other, if I'm honest. I mean, surely if you listen, and I mean, as you listen to one of your reporters seen on the media or on TV or whatever, and they've decided to come out with
After 600 yards, leave the roundabout at the second exit and continue to follow the A75.
Paramedic like you anytime soon, and it's not absolutely urgent. What would you advise people to do?
Leave the roundabout at the second exit.
If they need us, or is in,
they need you. Yeah, what's your message to people?
I would emphasise to people, if you need us, definitely pick up the phone and ring 999. Ultimately, if it's not an emergency or you think you can deal with it somewhere else, there's loads of services. There's 111, there's 111 online, there's your GP, there's the pharmacist, even just general self-care. There's a lot of things that you can do other than just picking up the phone and ringing 999. But if it is an emergency, ring us.
Of course, yeah, that's vital. That's a real question, but it's really about people panicking. What's your message to those?
Follow the road for 1 mile.
Please don't.
Don't panic.
Don't panic. There is fuel out there. It's just unfortunately your actions of panicking and of buying is causing massive delays, not just for everybody, potentially lives now.
It's silly and it's also quite serious. Luke in Barking, thank you very much. You can't get enough Luke. Luke, you're on the air. What are you seeing?
Luke over here. But while I'm in the queue right now, waiting for food, I've been waiting for a long time.
How long have you been waiting for?
About half an hour. Probably got about 2 cars out ahead, judging by the speed of movement. So by the end of a minute, you know, back out and stand up to the back of the sign. What's not happened in situations where some drivers normally deliver food, I've decided to be clever and sell empty fuel cans to people in the queue, so they can put more fuel.
Okay. Because there was talk at one stage of a limit on the amount of fuel you can actually get at a petrol station. That's obviously not the case yet.
They're not monitoring that. The people in the fuel stations that don't have time watching it that they're just taking what they can get. But the thing is, people keep pushing in across opposite the station, you know, from both sides. So it's causing other some beeping and things like that.
And tell me, we just heard the other Luke saying that he thinks a lot of people are panic buying. They shouldn't be buying fuel because they might not need it. Why have you gone to buy fuel this morning?
After 400 yards, leave the roundabout at the second exit and continue to follow the A75.
I'm thinking ahead, you know. Listen, there's not a shortage of fuel, there's a shortage of common sense. I think the government need to wake up and start sort it out. I don't think it's time to blame anyone, it's time to sort things out. As for the ambulance drivers,
leave the roundabout at the second exit.
Of course they should. No, I totally get. I hear you. You've got to take kids to school next week. You know that's fair enough.
I wouldn't have put it out in the media somehow, to keep it quiet, someone's out in the background doing a problem. The problem is people's response to filling up all the spare cars on the driveway, filling them with fuel when they don't need them, and then we're just getting max fuel, so it's causing problems, that's causing more problems, isn't it?
Follow the road for 1 mile.
Very well done. Luke and Bromley, thank you very much to you as well. So the question is, what's your experience? So, you know, can you hear what are you experiencing the same thing that they've just told us about? Who's to blame in your book, and what is the solution to all this? I mean, a lot of people are talking about drivers. We'll dig a little bit deeper into that, but of course there are lots of other things happening as well at the same time. So it's really beginning to feel a bit like winter, even though it's just autumn. So call me 0345 6060 973. I'm Matt Fry. This is LBC. The time is 10:16.
This is LBC.
Turn everyday business purchases into the trip of a lifetime with the British Airways American Express Accelerating Business Card. You'll earn 1.5 Avios for every £1 you spend, and for a limited time, you'll receive 60,000 Avios when you spend £5,000 in the first 3 months of card membership. Apply today and check it.
After 500 yards, leave the roundabout at the second exit and continue to follow the A75.
Be withdrawn or modified at any time after 2nd November 2021. Terms apply.
Hello, it's your eyes here, and we're feeling a bit neglected.
Leave the roundabout at the second exit.
Twice a day, regular visit to the dentist, and flossing. That's why you should get an OCT scan at Specsavers. Like going to the dentist for a checkup, it can help detect certain eye health conditions up to 4 years in advance. OCT scans are available at Specsavers stores nationwide, so give your eyes some love.
Book an eye test with an OCT scan at specsavers.co.uk. Additional charge applies for OCT scan.
The Admiral and Mrs. Taylor set out on a lovely picnic in a hot air balloon. But things didn't go to plan.
Pesky seagulls, they ruined everything.
I know.
They not only wrecked my son's car with my roast chicken, but they also demolished Mom's chimney and her garden.
But you saved the day with Admiral Multicover.
Mrs. Taylor insured her family cars and homes, all at different addresses, on a single multi-cover policy. Admiral Multicover, rewardingly simple.
I told you, we know one month you could be running your business.
After 500 yards, leave the roundabout at the first exit and continue to follow the A75.
That's okay, because our business contracts can flex as your needs change. And with us, you can get great deals for your business on the latest phones, tablets and SIMs. Choose the flex.
Leave the roundabout at the first exit.
Eligibility and terms apply. See o2.co.uk/terms.
Winner. Can you hear it? That's a winner. And another one. That's the sound of sweet, sweet epic downtime.
Follow the road until further instructions.
Casino, nothing never sounded so good.
Join PokerStars Casino today and get a £20 free bonus on slots games only. 100 redemption points to clear bonus. Terms apply. 18+. Pay responsibly. BeGambleAware.org.
So I called me mate Tom and I said, I'm waiting for me Chinese to be delivered. What are you up to? And he said, I'm waiting for me car to be delivered from Cinch. I said, oh, Cinch. And he said, yeah, Cinch. Like you said, Cinch lets you play a quality check used car online with a 14-day money-back guarantee. And I said, delivery included Friday to your door, yeah? Oh, speak of the devil, that's my lemon pepper chicken. And he said, no, that's my tasty motto. You're in the driving seat now, Britain. Cinch, cars without the faff. UK mainland delivery only, T's and C's apply.
Matt Fry on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
So call me with your experiences. What have you seen? Are there queues at petrol stations near you? Are some of those petrol stations closed? The more friends and colleagues I speak to, the more I get anecdotal evidence that there is a problem. The question is whether we're creating the problem, whether psychology is creating the problem. Are we panic buying, or do you actually have to fill your tank, as we just heard in Bromley, because you've got to take your kids to school next week? Or if you're an ambulance driver, as we also heard, you've got to have a tank that's full because you're going to have to pick people up and take them to hospital. It is a massive problem. There's clearly a psychological solution to some extent, assuming that we can believe the authorities and the companies who say there's plenty of fuel around, but there's also the problem, as has been widely demonstrated, of drivers, right? Drivers, we need more HGV drivers, we just don't have enough of them. Let's go to Tom Reddy. He's an HGV driver and transport consultant and has a popular social media Twitter account called The Lorriest. He joins us now. Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm just getting ready to head to work this evening and just kind of head in hands with the situation we're seeing at the moment with the panic buying, sadly.
So we'll get on to drivers in a minute, but for you to get fuel for your lorry, how difficult is that? Do you have the same problems that other people are having?
Not in my particular case. It will vary from company to company. We bunker our own fuel, and so we have a storage on site, and the tanker comes straight to us. Because we deliver to the supermarkets, we cannot stop that supply chain, and so we must make sure we have the fuel. So that's why they do that. But smaller hauliers, definitely, they're going to have problems. And we're not filling up 30 litres, we're filling up 300, 500 litres a time, and so that is a headache. And I really do struggle in those conditions.
I love the idea of bunkering up your own fuel. I might have to do the same in my garden. There we go.
Should we be careful with that one? Because if we can say anything, please do not go storing fuel or the containers you have.
I was being facetious there. Of course not. That is a really bad idea.
Message, because the containers you use to store fuel, the plastic for your lawnmower, they're not designed to store fuel for a long period of time. So people thinking of doing that, please don't.
Okay, don't do it. Don't store your own fuel. Do not become a petrol silo. Okay, who's to blame for this whole mess in your book?
I get very cautious about laying blame. I don't think our government has served us particularly well, but it is a perfect storm we're in right now of a range of situations. We are short of drivers. We've known about a shortage of drivers for 15 years and nothing much has been done, at a system level to try and sort it out. So we're in the storm now, unfortunately.
And why is there a shortage of drivers?
So Brexit has played a huge part of it. It's not the only part of the story. We lost a lot in the pandemic. We lost a lot on the back of the IR35 regulations, and over time, the ageing workforce of drivers is retiring, and they're not being replaced in this country.
So I mentioned some figures in my introduction. These are estimates that come from the industry. Are they just about right in your experience? So 20,000 HGV drivers missing to the European Union, about 50,000 missing domestically, because as you said, many of them are just retired and they're not been replaced?
Certainly, yeah. I would say, obviously the DVLA have the exact figures, and so we should have access to those figures. But yes, we are short, and in the interim, I think the temporary visa is the only way. We can talk about the theoretical structural improvements we need to make, but we're right in the problem now, and we need to sort it out. And the quickest way we can do that is to open up our pool of workforce. I don't think anyone really cares where the drivers come from if they're being honest with themselves once they start to see shortages on the supermarket shelves and at the pumps.
How much are wages to blame, or insufficient wages?
Yeah, it plays a factor. It's a factor, but it's one part of the bigger picture. I think in the case of what we're seeing now with the
Solutions, an international transport company. Good morning, Toby.
Good morning.
So is the solution here 5,000 temporary visas, or is that just not enough?
I'm a bit sceptical about what I heard this morning with regards to that. I think realistically a little bit bigger than that. And I can't see that opening massive amount of doors.
So what do you think should be done?
To be honest, I'm not too sure what really can be done. At the end of the day, we're just coming out of a pandemic now, where demand for vehicles was a lot less throughout the pandemic. That was the time the second opening up now as well. All of a sudden, there's a massive surge in demand on Christmas travel as well, which people talking about panic buying stuff for Christmas, getting ready, which isn't helping. I think that the reality is people just need to calm down a little bit and let it settle down.
We heard Tom there saying that a lot of the drivers have either retired or that a lot of the European ones haven't come back. Where do you think the drivers have all gone?
A lot of the European drivers have returned home. I don't personally, but obviously some have returned home due to Brexit. A large volume are turning them down to the fact that the standards, the working standards, the living standards in European countries have sort of come up to a level that are similar to ours now. So rather than coming to live in the UK for 3 months and then going home to see their families, I believe that actually they've returned home and are working at home, which is a place they would rather be.
And there's talk of the army being brought in to drive some of these trucks. Is that a good idea?
Whatever we need to make it work, we need to do at the present time, I think, is what I would say.
Tom, let me get back to you, Tom Reddy. There's also been a lot of talk of fast streaming HGV driving licenses. How does that work, and is that a good idea?
Yeah, so they have proposed these changes to the testing, and a lot of people are getting a little bit bent out of shape about it, and I can understand why. It's never a good idea to talk about lowering standards. Of course, it was always the case years ago that you could go straight into a full-size articulate lower, so there's a debate on both sides of it. I don't think shortening the testing and reducing the standards is a good idea.
How long does it take right now? It's about 6 to 8 weeks, isn't it? The whole process, is that right?
Well, to understand the actual course itself, to do a week's training, driving, and hopefully passing a test at the end of it is only a small part of it. There's the medical, there's the provisional license, and there's the on-the-job training. Once you have the license in your hand, getting the license is only the small part of it. And I think.
So how long does the whole thing? If I decide to become an HGV driver today and I've got a good driving license for a normal vehicle, how long will that process take me?
It's a testing backlog and the bottleneck there that is the problem. So in a perfect world, you'd be able to sign up and do it within a few weeks. But we are in a bottleneck with that testing.
So it takes a few months?
Potentially, yes. Potentially, yes. If you ring up a training company right now, I think they're going to tell you you're at the end of a long queue.
So finally, what is the quickest way, I'll ask you both the same question, what is the quickest way to get the number of drivers that we need, roughly about 100,000 drivers, in order to get back to normal? How do we do that, and can we do it before Christmas? First you, Tom.
So the only short term is the pay, as we're already seeing, has to go through the roof to get the people back, maybe to reconsider the licence holders in the UK who choose not to drive. If they're going to come back and drive, then there would need to be a sufficient package on offer to them, and the visa situation to at least open the door to the European pool of drivers. Whether they want to come back or not, as we mentioned, is up for debate, but at least we have to have that system available, and those are the only two long-term solutions.
Toby, what's your solution?
For me, there's a couple of solutions. One is for the government to sort of create a funding package which would allow people who aren't in work to go forward and get their HGV licenses, do the training. That won't happen overnight, but it might sort of bring people on board and get them into the training. The other thing which people are missing out on is there is a massive backlog of applications sitting with the DVLA in Swansea which aren't being processed. There's drivers who have done medicals that I know of
all the optimism that we've got. The question to you on 03456060973 is, what's it like for you out there now? What are you seeing? What's your experience of trying to fill up your tank? Have you come across a closed petrol station? Have you had to wait in a queue like two of our callers earlier? So tell me about it. I want to hear about it. I want to hear your views. Who do you blame? What's your solution? All that, please. 03456060973. There are tons of callers coming in. I will get to you as soon as I can. The time is a glorious 10:30, which means it's time for the LBC News headlines with Rebecca Cook.
Long queues of motorists waiting to fill up their tanks can be seen at some petrol stations as ministers work to increase the number of HGV drivers. The shortage has hit fuel deliveries. It's reported up to 5,000 temporary visas could be granted for foreign workers to plug the gap. The Duchess of Cambridge says she's saddened by the loss of another innocent woman following the death of Sabina Nessa in southeast London. Last night, hundreds of people attended a vigil in Kidbrooke for the 28-year-old. Labour wants to increase the minimum wage to at least £10 an hour. The party will set out its so-called New Deal for workers at its annual conference later. The weather, cloudy for most with some showers in the west, warm sunshine developing later, a high of 22 degrees.
This is LBC.
Right now, there's 25% off all F&F clothing at Tesco on club card prices. That's 25% off all women's, men's and kids wear. Anyone only popped in for the weekly shop? F&F fashion at Tesco. Available in the majority of larger stores, excludes Express and Next. Club card or app required. Ends Sunday 26th of September.
Larry photographed stars in the 60s. He saw fame captured from the sidelines. Supermodels staring back at him through his lens. Sessions at the recording studio with the biggest band on earth. Now, Specsavers home visit opticians help him keep everything in focus. Larry is just one of the amazing people we meet on our home visits. Find out if you or a loved one are eligible for a free NHS-funded home eye test by searching Specsavers home visits online.
Brian's in the dentist chair. He's all numbed up. All numbed up. Great. Brian found the right dental plan at the right price for the whole family. With nobody home. Visit simplyhealth.co.uk for a choice of dental plans to suit you and your family. Simply Health. Altogether smilier. Decencies, exclusions and limitations apply.
The mouth-watering cheesy bacon flatbread from McDonald's with 2 strips of sizzling beechwood smoked bacon covered in delicious melted cheese. That is so good. And it's just $1.49. McDonald's. Breakfast done properly. Served until 11 a.m. Price and participation may vary across restaurants. Price not applicable to delivery orders. If you want superior security, you need the Simply Safe family.
We're a tight-knit network of super smart sensors.
Here to keep your home safe. I look after your entryways.
System starts at just $249. You can
That Jeep wanna pass that white one, innit?
And for just $12.99 a month, you'll get professional monitoring from a security
try it now.
expert like me.
Cat flaps too.
Visit simplysafe.co.uk to find out more. And let our family look out for yours. T's and C's apply. Jess, have you seen this Dogs Trust ad in the paper about the National Dog Survey? Countdown point.
No. What's it for?
It says the pandemic has changed everything for dogs too, so we're calling on all owners to fill in the National Dog Survey today. I think Milo wants me to fill in the survey. National Dog Survey? Yeah, brilliant. Is your dog trying to tell you something? Fill in Dogs Trust Survey today to help dogs tomorrow. Search National Dog Survey.
Across the UK, thousands of people are switching broadband every day because they've realised if they're out of contract, they could be out of pocket. There has never been a better time to switch and save. Get Vodafone super fast broadband from only £19.50 a month. Switch today. Together we can. Vodafone.
CPI plus 3.9% increase each April. 24-month contract subject to credit check acceptance and availability. Cheaper versus publicly available out of contract non-promotional per month pricing with competitors as of 17th of the 8th, 2021. Terms and verification at vodafone.co.uk/broadband.
Matt Fly on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973. We're going to talk about the German elections in a while, but we're really focusing on petrol queues at the moment, the reasons for those queues and what your experiences are with it. We're getting tons of callers ringing in to say that they're stuck in queues, they can see queues, they've decided to basically stay at home because the local petrol station is closed. What's your experience? 0345 6060 973. Let's go to Katie in 7X. Katie, you're on the air. Hi, what's your experience?
Well, I've decided to give up now this morning.
To give up? How long were you
trying for?
Well, I had about a quarter of a pack. Yesterday I went to the petrol station and the queue was quite big, and I thought, oh, wait later, everybody's just having a mild panic this morning. I drove into London.
And then you had a mild panic this morning as well?
Well, I drove into London yesterday and I thought, I'm going past about 8 petrol stations. It can't be that bad. 4 closed. 4 had massive queues, and I knew I was coming back out of London at 7 o'clock this morning, so I thought I'll beat the traffic. And the traffic at 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning driving through southeast London was like 5 o'clock on a Friday evening. It was gridlock.
Are you serious? That's extraordinary.
It would normally take me 45 minutes to get home. It took me an hour and a half because the traffic of people trying to get into petrol stations queuing for one pump. I think around Purley Way there was it was kind of just gridlocked trying to get through. Everyone's trying to funnel into one petrol station. So luckily
So everyone is burning fuel in order to get more fuel that they can't get.
Yeah, and it's running the risk of thinking, do I sit in queue and potentially run out because I generally I have 20 miles left in my bank, or do I get home and hope that the madness dies down a bit over the weekend? So that's the option I've gone for. I don't desperately need to go anywhere this weekend. I can walk the children to school, so I'm hoping by Monday there's either been a tanker delivery or people calming down. But it's crazy, and I think it's that combination of I feel that not everybody, but I think a lot of people don't have a great deal of trust in the government. So then when you get told not to panic, through past experience, when you get told something, it then proves not to be true. So everyone's gone panic. So I know it's not as easy as saying it's Brexit or it's driver shortages. It's an amalgamation of all these things.
Okay.
But I do think it's kind of been whipped up into a bit of a frenzy, and then everybody's going out there. And I think there is a worry of things like
You need something from the back there.
teachers going to be able to get into school.
Why do you keep
because
looking
they're
back
going to
there?
enough petrol.
Well, as we heard earlier from Luke the paramedic, it's about serious stuff as well, and there might be psychology there. There is an element of panic. There are lots of other reasons too, as we heard from the HGV drivers. Katie in 7X, thanks very much. Let's go to Terry in Birmingham. Terry, what's your experience?
So, good morning. So, I can tell you, the question isn't, is there a shortage? There is a shortage. Every petrol station I passed this morning has a queue of about 35 cars outside. And I would say, looking at Birmingham, like I live in the city centre, they will be empty by the end of today. Now, if you have a system that hasn't got enough drivers to deliver fuel for normal consumption, and then you have a mass buy, that is causing a crisis that we will not recover from for some considerable length of time because you haven't got enough drivers in the first place.
Okay, so what's your solution, Terry?
In a country of 63 million people, we need to stop relying on migrants to come into the country to do the jobs that we don't want to do. Like, with heavily reliant on care homes for immigration to provide those carers. In the health service, we are pulling doctors in from all about the world to supplement our health service, and we haven't got the doctors ourselves.
Yeah, but it takes time to train doctors, and it even takes time to train HGV drivers. I mean, as we just heard from, one of the drivers, 6 to 8 weeks minimum at the moment with all the backlogs to get the drivers up and running.
And that's the thing, isn't it? And what we've done is instead of having that natural progression of producing work to do these jobs, we've sucked in drivers from the EU and all around the world.
Okay, let me ask you, Terry, sorry to interrupt, let me ask you a question. The government this morning apparently is considering issuing 5,000 kind of emergency visas for HGV drivers to fill the hole. Priti Patel apparently is against it because she thinks it dilutes the government's whole immigration policy. Are you prepared to keep your petrol tank empty but stay pure on the question of immigration?
It's not just that, is it? Because it's the just-in-time systems that we use.
The specific issue here is your petrol tank. Are you prepared to not drive your car and to say to yourself or to your friends, at least we've stuck to the principles of immigration, which means that we have to level up, if that's the right word, people in this country to do the jobs that were done by European workers before?
In that framed question, no, I'm not. But then the problem is, everybody's got a reason to buy fuel, whether it's to drop the kids at school, whether it's to go shopping, whether it's to go visit your mum and your dad. Everybody's got a legitimate reason, which is what drives that consumerism. The trouble is, you've got a system that can't cope in everyday business, and then you're pushing it over the edge. And we pushed it over the edge. We caused this because there's enough fuel in the country. You just can't get it from A to B. And
Terry, you summed it up nicely. Indeed, Terry in Birmingham, thanks very much for your call. There's so many other people, so I'm going to move along swiftly to Kevin in Baldridge. Kevin, you're on the air. Yeah, what's your experience with all this thing?
It's dead simple. That's been around for 15 years. Just put the wages up. Get the terms and conditions better. Treat them with respect when they get to delivery points instead of sitting around for 4 hours, waiting, then they've got to rush to back up time. Then the government thinks, oh, give them more hours, give them more chance to kill someone on the road. It's just ridiculous. Just
Are you a driver yourself, Kevin? Are you an HGV driver yourself? And are you still driving or have you retired? And tell me, what do you think of this idea of, sort of streamlining, fast-tracking the HGV licenses?
There's going to be more there somewhere. You can't send somebody out.
England.
It's a bad idea.
England straight ahead.
Welcome, see that side.
Get proper professional drivers on the radio. They'll tell you everything I'm telling you. They'll tell you exactly so. Never mind what the transport company's saying and the big people, all the big conglomerates. Just put the wages up and make the terms and conditions clear. Treat us with the labels.
Just tell us, Brent, Mike, what the wages are at the moment and where would you like them to be?
Probably 6, 8, 12 months ago, it was around £10, £10.50 an hour. Not to that was a minimum wage, minimum wage is called my wages up within about £1. But she was just doing the same sort of basic job. Everyone's professional, to do 70 hours a week, for £10.50, £11 an hour. And this is what's bringing the panic in there. People can't move the stock because everybody wants them to go to bit. Why? They just go out of it, not do that.
And Kevin, I'm sorry, I called you Mike earlier. You're Kevin, of course. Kevin, just finally with you, do you think the solution is bringing back those drivers
Welcome to
from the
England.
European Union? Roughly 20,000.
Bye, Scotland. Bye.
Professionalism is the out the job. They don't treat us with any respect anywhere. They talk to us like dogs. And people just don't want it anymore. They walk away. This has been coming 10, 15 years. Drivers that were for nearly 40 years have been talking about this for at least 10 years. And now it's come to pass.
Just one brief...
I get out every day, 9, 10 hours instead of doing 12, 15 hours, not knowing if I'm going to get home. I'm quite happy doing my little job. I've got my car. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. So I won't get moved up to it. Not for £20 an hour.
How old are you, Kevin?
62.
62. And just...
And I was earning wages that they're paying to drive artics 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's shocking. Kevin, finally and briefly, what do you think of the idea of bringing the army in to drive those trucks?
I think you're going to not have any choice but to be quite honest, because I think you're banging on a door that's bolted because the armies are not coming back in. We have to take what they call a driver C+C card, and when we take that card, it allows you 5 years to drive a vehicle. The lads at my age are saying, I'm not taking the C+C card, it's not good anymore.
Okay, Kevin and Baldridge, thank you so much for your call, Kevin, and good luck to you. Let's go to Matt in Beaconsfield. Matt.
How you doing?
Fine. What's your experience been?
So we've just come out for a quick breakfast at a local service station. We live about a mile away from Beaconsfield services, and we're coming and we cannot get back out. It's just log jammed. Crazy.
Traffic.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, we're in the car park for half an hour and it's not moved. There's just hundreds of cars.
That's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Have you ever seen anything like it?
Not my middle. No, not my 57 years on this planet. Crazy.
Are the police there at all? Has anyone kind of, keeping an eye on things?
Everything's pretty calm, but I mean, we were thinking about abandoning the car and locking go. My daughter's at a gymnastics class, but I pick her up in half an hour. Fortunately, we can walk home, but there's people here. I spoke to a guy that's come down from Wigan. He said every service station is exactly the same. It's madness.
It's madness. Matt, thank you very much indeed for your call. The question is, what's your experience been? Who do you blame? What's the fix? 0345 6060 973. Tons of callers coming in. I will get to as many of you as possible. In the next, after the next break, we're going to talk about the German elections. It matters what happens in Germany. It matters to us as well, despite Brexit, or perhaps even because of it. I'm Matt Fry. This is LBC. The time is 10:44.
LBC.
I'm David Lammy here on LBC. We've lost Gavin Williamson, but you might say we should have lost him months ago. Months and months ago, after the fiasco of GCSE. Finally, Gavin Williamson has gone, and into Culture Secretary Nadine Dorris. Really? Dominic Raab is now my opponent, but he should have gone ages ago. Join me, David Lammy, today from 4. Listen on your radio and on Global Player. LBC.
Right now at Vodafone, you can save £168 on the incredible Samsung Galaxy S21 5G. Also, when you trade in a Samsung Galaxy S10 using our trading tool, it can be yours from only £23 a month and £29 upfront with 25 gigabytes of data. Available on Vodafone Evo, online or in store. Together we can. Vodafone.
CPI plus 3.9% annual increase. £168 offer ends 30th September. Subject to device and airtime plans, credit and trading check, coverage, eligibility and terms. Saving details at vodafone.co.uk. Credit by Vodafone.
Saeed Hassan has a real pickle on his hands. Actually, I just ate it. He's been given a top secret work mission.
You talking about the 20 gig file transfer?
That's on a one-way ticket to nowhere, Val.
What? I sent it ages ago. Our office has BT's fastest speeds.
Saeed, please, let me do my job.
Cut the drama with full fibre speeds of up to 900 megabits per second from BT. So it's all business,
no drama.
Search BT Business to find out more. BT, beyond limits. If you want superior security, you need the Simply Safe family.
We're a tight-knit network of super smart sensors.
Here to keep your home safe. I look after your entryways.
System starts at just $249.
You can set this up yourself.
Doors, windows.
And from just $12.99 a month, you'll get professional monitoring from a security expert like me.
Cat flaps too.
Visit simplysafe.co.uk to find out more. And let our family look out for yours. T's and C's apply.
Jess, have you seen this Dogs Trust ad in the paper about the National Dog Survey?
Calm down, Quinn.
No. What's it for?
It says the pandemic has changed everything for dogs too, so we're calling on all
afflicting our country, whether it's petrol queues, emptier shelves in some of the supermarkets, a rise in inflation, the rise in fuel costs, all the chickens are coming home to roost at the same time. Why is this happening? What have you seen? What's your solution if you have one at all? Do let us know. 0345 606 0973. In Germany, where I'm covering the elections at the moment, everyone is watching events in Britain very carefully because, of course, here too they are affected by fuel shortages for one, because most of their gas comes from Russia. The Russians have actually supplied them with 25% gas less than they did last year because they want the Germans to sign on the dotted line for the Nord Stream 2 project. This pipeline project that's very controversial, and the Germans are divided about whether they should do this. This is just one of the issues that is playing into one of the most contentious and nail-biting election campaigns that we've seen in Germany for a very long time, because of course the election is tomorrow, and as we know, what happens in Germany doesn't stay in Germany. It's vitally important. Who better to discuss this with than John Camphor, my good old friend from broadcasting days and journalistic days and German days. He has written a fabulous book, Why Do Germans Do It Better? There we go. Good morning, man. Good morning, John. It's great to see you. So tell me, you've covered tons of German elections. We know this country really well. Why does this one matter so much?
It's so funny when you use the words German elections and exciting. They don't normally go together, but this one, it really, really does apply. Opinion polls, even last night, were showing the parties almost neck and neck. We've already had 3 parties in the lead just in this election campaign, and usually people think German politics is dull, not much happens, but this one really, really matters. It matters for this country in all kinds of ways: foreign affairs, relationship with the United States, with Russia, with China, with Britain hugely, the whole future of the European Union, with Britain outside the European Union. It's absolutely vital. We've got climate change, we've got the end of the pandemic, and this is the biggest economy in Europe, one of the biggest economies in the world. It really matters what goes on here.
And it also matters because Mutti, Angela Merkel, who's been in charge for 16 years, is of course not on the ballot paper this time around. It's a problem, isn't it, for her party, the Christian Democrats, because she's been so good at hogging the limelight, and the top of power for such a long time. She's very popular in the country, but she's never really put a proper succession plan in place, and now they've got a problem.
That's absolutely right. She's been on the top for 16 years, which is remarkable. She's seen through 5 British prime ministers, countless American presidents. But what she's done is she's almost sucked the life out of her own party, the Christian Democrats, the centre-right party, and out of a lot of German politics. Now that she is going, and people are going to hugely miss her, but at the same time they know she's got to go to get her final job. She probably should have gone before the pandemic, but decided to stay to help run that. There is just a huge gulf. There is a huge gap. Nobody knows who is the right person to lead Germany into the next generation. This campaign has been exciting, but it's also been hugely disappointing. The 3 candidates just really haven't stood up very well to scrutiny.
At one stage, it looked as if we might get the first Green Chancellor of an industrialised economy, Annalena Baerbock, who's the head of the Green Party, or the leading candidate for the Green Party. I mean, at one stage, they were the leading party in the opinion polls back in, I think, May and April. That's not the case anymore. What's gone wrong there?
In and of itself, I mean, that was remarkable. I mean, Germany's Greens are unlike no other country has a Green party of the size and the influence of Germany. The fact that they were even being considered as the leading party was pretty incredible. There was this huge hype when she was chosen to lead in rather opaque circumstances, her or another guy called Robert Habeck, and it was pretty much just given to her. Their opinion polls and her opinion poll ratings absolutely went through the roof. It was quite unrealistic. Then she got stuck in various completely avoidable problems about plagiarizing some stuff for a book and embellishing her CV. Stuff that is it's pretty low grade, but at the same time, any half-decent party with people behind the scenes would have stopped that kind of thing.
And there seems to be a kind of fundamental division in this country. On one hand, they want a fresh start. They want something different, especially young people. They're really thirsting for change. And of course, 14 million of them have only ever known Angela Merkel as their chancellor.
Yeah, absolutely. They're desperate for change, but they're also fearful of change. And there's a generational split, as there often is in politics in any country. The word that they're always using at the moment is digitalization. Every problem is going to be solved. But it is true. I mean, you cannot have a mobile phone call in Berlin or anywhere without it going out all the time. You think it's bad in
the type of because why do Germans do it better? There's a lot of digital stuff they really don't do better at all.
There's a lot of stuff they don't do better, and my book, in spite of the very sort of binary title, does go into the things that they don't do very well as well. I made an absolute pig's ear of building the airport in Berlin and big train station in the city of Stuttgart in the southwest. All kinds of things they're not doing right. The economy needs to modernise.
Why are Germans less efficient than we think they are?
In some ways, it's because they're too perfectionist. They don't do things. They don't sign off on things until everybody has signed off on them. Slow but steady is the phrase that's always been associated with it, and with Angela Merkel, who pretty much personifies this country, which does mean when they do things, and when they get there, in the end, they are world beating, whether it's optics or biomedicine or cars or whatever, they're always the best, but they just take a long time to get there. The startup scene here, the tech startup scene, is incredibly slow, but again, it's getting there. And, that's the sort of, and that's the same with their politics. They always take a long time to make their decisions, but I would argue that their political system is a hell of a lot more mature than ours.
How would they deal, and they may still have to deal, with the kind of fuel shortages and driver shortages and queues that we're seeing in the UK this morning that we're discussing on the program?
Well, I think it's arguable that it wouldn't be any much better here. They've got both a strength and a weakness in the fact that the way the country is run is split between the centre, the federal government here in Berlin, and the 16 regions, the Länder, which run their own thing, and that often makes decision-making more difficult. At the same time, I don't get the impression that Germans are that much prone to sort of panic, but we'll see if that happens here. But the shortages that are here are, I would argue, unlike some of your listeners, that Brexit does have a lot to do with it, and we simply have a shortage of manpower, not just with drivers, but as one of your listeners was saying, in the NHS, we have that in our hospitality sector. We just don't have the people in the UK, or the people don't want to do the jobs. And that was one of the great benefits of the European Union. I know listeners won't necessarily agree with that, but as far as I'm concerned, the chickens are coming home to roost.
Just one final one on Germany. I mean, it will be a coalition government. It always is. That could take months, couldn't it? I mean, it could be quite an unstable period.
Yeah, I mean, it's arguable that Angela Merkel will still be around at Christmas. Last time she was around until the following March. If she makes it to December the 17th, by the way, she will become the longest serving German Chancellor in post-war history, beating Helmut Kohl, one of her predecessors. So yeah, don't expect anything soon. They've got to create a coalition on things out of 3 parties. That's going to take a long time.
That's tough. John Kampfner, thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme and explaining that so well. By the way, a fun fact here, the last time a British Prime Minister served as long as Angela Merkel was Pitt the Younger, 1801.
I was going to say Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair, but she beat them both.
Yeah, she beat them both. Pitt the Younger, 1801, taken from the pits. Okay, let's go to Mike in Canterbury. Mike, what's your experience about fuel shortages? Sorry, we lost Mike. We're going to go to Scott in Great Yarmouth. Yeah. What have you experienced, Scott?
Really, I just want to get a message across to people that you really don't need the fuel. If you haven't got any urgent trips, then please, just don't be going there to fill up for the sake of it. I worked for the ambulance service. My 12-hour shift yesterday turned into 16 hours. 16 hours because while transferring people, all urgents and not all very lights, to and from their hospitals and hospital transfers, we were kept on so many bay roads where the queues of 60, 70 cars were going into the petrol stations. That was delaying us on jobs for 2 or 3 hours. And that's not fair on people, poorly people who deserve to be looked after, who deserve to get to the place where they're going to be treated correctly, and they're sitting in the back of an ambulance for 2 or 3 hours. One of my trips was a 14-mile round trip. It took us 3 hours. It's not acceptable. And
It really isn't. Scott, listen, thank you very much for slightly running out of time this hour. That's awful to hear, but I'm sure we're going to hear more and more of these experiences. Call me and tell me what you've seen, whether you're sitting in a petrol queue, whether you're sitting at home because you can't get into your car, or whether you're one of the lucky people who've actually filled their tank and are driving off to see friends or relatives this weekend, because this seems to affect everyone, and when it starts to affect ambulance drivers and paramedics, it really is bad news. So what's going on? Who's to blame? And what's the fix? That's
you're going to fill up 30
Downing
pounds of
Street
petrol
says any measures
and pay
taken to help
50
ease
to
the
80
lorry driver
pounds
shortage will be strictly
bus
time
lane
limited
ticket.
and is insisting the country has ample fuel stocks. Simon Williams from the RAC says there's no need to panic buy.
There is no shortage of fuel. The UK has a very good supply of fuel at the moment. There's just an issue with a few sites having difficulty with getting deliveries. But panic buying is really not going to help. We really urge people not to panic buy.
A minute's silence is being held this hour for a Metropolitan Police officer who was shot and killed at a custody centre in South London. It's exactly a year since Sergeant Matt Martiner died in the line of duty. A service for the 54-year-old will also take place in November. Labour wants to increase the minimum wage to at least £10 an hour. The party is setting out its so-called New Deal for Workers at its annual conference. Deputy Leader Angela Rayner says the plan would improve productivity.
We think it's good for example, staff retention. It's good for sickness levels. If we skill people up and we pay them correctly and we give them decent terms and conditions, it's actually less costly for those employers because they'll retain the staff, and it will be good for business.
3 more towns have been evacuated as a volcano continues to erupt on the Spanish island of La Palma. Some scientists are warning there could be explosions up until December. And Daniel Craig says it's a joyous thing the latest James Bond film will finally hit cinemas next week. The actor says he's grateful the producers of No Time to Die held their nerve to ensure it didn't just go online. The weather, cloudy for most with some showers in the west. Warm sunshine developing as the day goes on, a high of 22 degrees. From Global's newsroom, I'm Rebecca Cook.
Afternoon, Mr. Noah. Good afternoon. Now, how is my arc coming along? Oh, it's all finished. Really? You only started this morning. Yeah, so done. You've built the pens for the elephants and zebras. I have. And an enclosure full of funny bears with black eyes. The pandas. Yeah, that's them. Blimey. Someone said they're Weetabix. Yes, mate, I free. But you are going to crack on, Mr. Noah. The forecast rain signal. Have you had your Weetabix? This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Matt Fry.
I have to say that whenever you hear stories of petrol queues and petrol stations being closed, I greet it with some degree of skepticism. But then I've heard so many stories, including from my wife and friends and colleagues, and of course you, callers, telling me what you're seeing this morning all over the country. And this thing seems to be snowballing. And we don't want to add to the panic. We really don't. Don't panic out there. Just don't do it. But overcoming that psychological hurdle is incredibly difficult, especially when you look ahead to the next weekend. You've got to take kids to school, you've got to drive to work, you've got all these things for which you need your car and for which you need petrol. So we're trying to be realistic here, we're trying to stay calm, we're trying to look at the very solutions at hand, whether it's visas for HGV drivers in the EU, whether it's training people up quickly in this country, but all of them will hit snags at one stage or another. Anyway, there is also a very full switchboard of calls. So let's go to Anne in Canterbury. Anne, what's your experience been this morning?
Oh, hello there. Yes, I was going to put forward an experience from 2 points of view, really. Firstly, my husband is a market garden produce distributor, obviously fruit and veg, so perishable items. Yesterday was just absolutely nuts. So we're in Kent, and every single petrol station that he drove past, obviously with the, perishable goods in the lorry was absolutely jam-packed. He did manage to get some diesel, so he did manage to make the deliveries. Today, though, is exactly the same, if not sort of a bit worse. So I was going to make the point that, yes, as you say, it's a real worry for individuals about fuel, but the trouble is, panic buying also has a real knock-on effect on freight and on the goods that we want. And obviously, especially with perishable goods, if you've got a lorry full of perishable goods like fruit and veg, you can't get the fuel distributed, and there's been no good by the time the next day has come, or the next delivery has come through. So, it's like the person that was, taking the patients around. It's such a widespread problem, and it will lead to other problems as well, which will cause anxiety.
Here's a philosophical question for you, Alan, because I'm sure you're quite philosophically minded. Did you think that no pressure? Did you think the pandemic, which started off with this ridiculous panic buying of loo rolls, did you think the pandemic would make us more philosophical, more relaxed about things that we really knew at the bottom of our heart and the back of our brains weren't going to be missing at the end of the week? Or has it actually made us panic more?
I think it's made us panic more. I was hopeful though. I agree with you. At the start of it, I thought, yeah, this might actually, shift our priorities, and we might think, well, okay, we can't get loo rolls, but we're alive. But no, I think I hate to say it because I think it's so depressing, but I think it's made us panic more, and I don't think it brought out the best in people at all. I think people are very easily worried now. I don't think that they trust the government. I think it's terribly sad, really. But I think, the government has got to act. I mean, the longer term problems, I've been largely caused by Brexit, and, that's partly also because I know through the food and distribution side, hasn't so much affected our area down here, but in areas where agriculture is much more,
So you blame Brexit for much of this?
As far as the HGV driver shortage of transporting produce, because that's the only thing that I can, I prefer this out first hand, most definitely. In some areas like Lincolnshire, there was quite a high figure of, the drivers from Europe, and they just went home. They've just been gradually going home, and they don't want to come back. They don't feel that welcome, and, I think conditions are improving there, and it's a shame, and it's something the government must have known about, need to address.
Well, actually, we heard an HGV driver earlier saying that actually they've known about it for 15 years and haven't done enough about it. That would be the Tory government and the previous Labour government. And in Canterbury, thank you very much. And thanks for mentioning Lincolnshire, because that's where Andrew is, and Andrew's a lorry driver. Andrew. Hi, so what's your experience?
Today has been carnage. I've been in the services, some of the services I've seen it in the carpet. You've got cars queuing out to make
petrol in 6 hours.
And when did that start, Mohammed?
That started
How many days ago?
on Wednesday. As soon as BP did that statement, BP is at fault here, and the government should have known about this because this problem has started since 2 months ago now.
Maybe BP got a backlog of fuel that weren't shifting, and by creating that, you understand?
Yeah, there's
You just never know.
everything in it.
Yeah.
You know, you can only buy the 2 flavors. Now, normally Lucas has about 8 flavors. Apple, cherry.
We don't need to hear them all, Mohammed.
You can only get the orange and original flavor. So there is a problem with HGV drivers. But the problem is that there's no planning. There's no planning for anything. And when somebody like BP makes a statement, silly statement like this, that they've got petrol station rates with no fuel, people are automatically going to panic. And the other thing is that we're a nation that lost casinos. You know, when the pandemic we should have learned from it.
We should, and we didn't. One quick one, Mohammed. Do you think there should be a limit on the amount of petrol that you can buy at a petrol station?
Limit on all my garages since Thursday, £20, no more. I've got garages, I've got 15 garages in across Northwest.
Wow.
And we have a limit of
£15.
And how are people reacting to that and reacting to the queues?
Some people don't like it. Some people come in and say, I've got to go to London, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Well, I'm sorry. Everybody has to have enough to go around. And we don't want to sell a full tanker in 6 hours. What are we going to do for the next 18 hours? We're still going to pay wages. We're still going to, and there's a security problem for us as well because if there's no customers, you know, the cashier is all alone. And what do you do with the cashiers? You've got no turnover. You're not selling the shop goods. You're not selling anything. So, but this panic buying is bad news for us as a business.
Mohammed, just one final question to you. Are people getting angry?
There are. There was an incident yesterday in one of my garages in Rosendale where 2 customers came to blows.
Over the pump?
Over the pump. Because one customer had gone over the limit of £30 and the other customer said, well, there's a limit. And he goes, what's it got to do with you and whatever, you know? We've all got it on CCTV and it's fine. You think, guys, come on, just calm down. Just calm down, will you? And to be honest, take pity on the cashiers because they're having to work 10 times harder for £9.50 an hour.
Yeah, all right. I'm actually
and try and keep this pumps open and this messages down to But next we're going to speak to an expert about the psychology of panic buying and how to deal with it. If it's a psychological solution,
Yeah.
James Mason.
When I reach home, I'll call you.
Petrol station in South London, where he's been living out all morning. I'm Matt Fry.
showing is that, so maybe the last point, the Brexit issue.
to 66777 now, regulated by the FCA. Just imagine, it's 1-1. The ref's about to blow as the ball loops into the box and gets in, an injury time winner. It feels so good. No one else feels so good, knowing that PensionBee combined your old pensions into one simple online plan, so you're confident your pension's on track.
Be pension confident. Download the app or visit pensionbee.com today.
Authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Capital at risk.
Work's done, load off. And with a £20 free bonus when I signed up to PokerStars Casino, I found the thrill and chill. Struck gold in the moments between the moments. You see, this ain't just downtime. No, this is epic downtime.
Join PokerStars Casino today and get a £20 free bonus on sign-up. Are you in? New casino players, slots games only, 100 redemption points to clear bonus. Terms apply. 18 plus. Pay responsibly. BeGambleAware.org.
Find the credit card you'll be looking for. Quick check, don't affect your score. See if it's a UK. At O2, we know 1 month you could be running your business on your own. But the next month, you need help. That's okay, because our business contracts can flex as your needs change. And with us, you can get great deals for your business on the latest phones, tablets and SIMs. Choose the flexible network. Search O2 Business.
Eligibility and terms apply. See o2.co.uk/terms.
When you own a small business, whether you're an IT consultant or selling flowers, your tech is your lifeline. Oh, no!
Sorry, we lost you there.
Great. But with Direct Line Business Tech Essentials, you can get your stolen or damaged tech replaced in 24 hours from claim approval. Whether it's laptops, phones or tablets, we're on it. Search Direct Line Business Insurance. Direct Line.
Cover and claim limits apply Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. except bank holidays. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Matt Fry on LBC.
I've got so many people contacting me on Twitter, on text, on Instagram, on the radio, of course. I've just been sent this picture by someone called Christiana from Scotland, showing an almost empty, perfectly well-behaved, socially distanced petrol station with no queues, apparently. So, I'm sure there are some petrol stations that are absolutely fine.
It's true.
Anyway,
All the petrol stations we passed in Scotland were empty.
Stuck in a queue? Are you angry?
Really?
Are you blaming
3 or
Brexit?
4
Are you
cars,
blaming the
nothing
government?
out of
Are you
the
blaming
norm.
us as in panic buying? We're going to speak to an expert on the psychology of panic buying. But let's first of all go to James Gillis now, reporter who's at a petrol station in South London. James, what's it like now?
A long queue still remains, and it has been like that, Matt, since...
Is it getting longer?
6 o'clock this morning. It has got longer since the last time I spoke to you. It's almost out of sight, almost down this road where I'm looking at the moment. It's not stopping traffic, though, as you can hear behind me, but I have a bit of a bad omen, actually. I'm just looking across to the nozzles, and they're starting to put sorry out of use on some of them. I can't see, but I think it's the
And so where exactly are you, James, so that people know to avoid that area? Not because they want to avoid you, they just want to avoid getting stuck in a queue and not getting petrol.
Well, I'm on Brixton Road, which is one of the arteries of traffic in South London. It goes all the way up and right to the river, and I drive past this petrol station every so often, and there's a little bit of a queue, but nothing like the one I've seen today. Indeed, because of the way that traffic works here, the queue is entirely centred in a bus lane, which has seen a lot of sort of overtaking and wrangling. There's also a bit of shaming going on, I suppose you can call it, where the queue is obviously on one side of the road, the left-hand side of the road, but on the other side, when cars come down, they try and squeeze in past the bulk of the queue, just straight into the forecourt, and that's normally accompanied by very angry beeping and a sort of a shameful three-point turn as they either join the back of the queue or decide to look elsewhere. But I've been talking to lots of people up and down here, Matt, and there's two different types of people who are queuing up today. There's people who are working, cabbies, driving instructors, people with vans, etc., delivery drivers. All of them are here, are trying to get on with their day. They've spoke to me about their annoyance. One man was an hour and a half late for the start of his work, decorating business, simply because he's been trying to get petrol. He drove all the way from Gatwick trying to get it, and his van even was so low on fumes, he had to get 2 of the gentlemen who were with him and his crew to get out and push him slowly along the road into the forecourt. He got there in the end, and he's been on his way for a little while now. But aside from the sort of vocational side, there's a lot of families and people who are just here to fill up. But of course, the key point being, there isn't a shortage of petrol, there's just a shortage of people delivering it to the stations here.
And a shortage of patience, perhaps, or a shortage of reason, let's say. James Goodison, thank you very much indeed. I hope that no one comes to blow at your petrol station. Let's speak to someone who can try and explain why we go panic buying. Professor Richard Bentle is from the University of Sheffield and a professor of clinical psychology, and, as I just said, an expert in panic buying. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
Why do we panic buy?
So, I think the most important thing to realise is that panic buying is not an entirely irrational activity. It's something which at the individual level makes perfect sense, but collectively can lead to apparent madness. So, obviously, if we feel that resources are depleting and are likely to become more scarce in the future, it makes sense to hoard. And in fact, animals do this. Animals are very sensitive to the availability of resources in the environment, and if those resources start to go down, they'll start to forage and they'll start to hoard stuff. And that's human beings are no different. We are animals after all. So the problem arises because if we see scarcity cues, something which tells us that something is going to be running out soon, it's almost automatic to go and then start to try and stock up. And if we do that, of course, we create more scarcity cues for everybody else. So
it's a cycle.
Yeah, it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. So I mean, and I'm not immune to it myself. So just to tell you, yesterday I was driving back from town and I passed a long queue at the petrol station. I looked at my tank indicator and it showed that I had about a fifth of the tank left. And I suddenly thought, well, maybe I better fill up. Normally I'd have probably gone home and just worried about it another day, but there was this sort of palpable sort of sense that, well, if I don't fill up now, I might not be able to in the future, so I joined the queue. Of course, then I produced a stimulus for other people going by to think exactly the same thing. So panic buying, vicious circle.
And is there a kind of upside to this, that once we've all filled our fuel tanks, we now have a full tank and we might want to conserve that and only do essential trips because we don't want to go through the experience again of having to wait or come across closed petrol stations. Does that then make the crisis go away a little bit? Or is that hopelessly optimistic?
I think that's rather optimistic. I mean, the problem is that it's a very difficult cycle to reverse. We know certain types of people are much more likely to do this than other people. So in the early stages of the coronavirus pandemic, we actually monitored purchasing behaviour in about 2,000 people. We found about a quarter of people were significantly over purchasing compared to what they would normally buy. And they came from some...
And what was their psychological profile? Who are the people who are the panic buyers?
Some demographics about them. They tended to be... so people who have young children at home, which were much more likely to do it. Women were much more likely to do it, but perhaps probably because women tend to do most of the shopping. And then we found something which sounds paradoxical, but isn't if you think about it. People who had a lot of money tended to do it, and they tended to do it because they could. And on the other hand, people who feared that they were going to lose income because of the pandemic, they also did it, and that kind of made sense. If you think you're not going to have money in the future, better stock up stuff now. So, and we also...
That's quite a lot of people, isn't it? You're ticking quite a few demographic boxes there.
Well, of course, some of those kind of categories overlap. And also, we found that people who were depressed and also who thought they had a high risk of infection were more likely to do it. So, those are all things which, in a sense, you can see as quite rational in their own way, but it leads to this kind of collective behaviour, which then becomes this vicious circle, which is difficult to reverse.
So a couple of callers have said this to me. They've said, when the government then stands up and says, there's nothing to see here, we've got tons of fuel, reserves that we can deploy, there is a shortage of drivers, and basically the situation is manageable, that's supposed to calm people down, but it doesn't really work. Explain that to me, and what would calm people down?
First of all, it's very difficult to calm people down. But secondly, the reason why it doesn't work is because, of course, what they're doing is putting the idea of shortages into people's heads just by mentioning them. So, and the third thing which is kind of related to that is that, of course, how we interpret that message will depend on how much we trust the government. So the government which has squandered trust by its behaviour in the past will, those kind of messages will either be disbelieved or be treated as potentially deliberately misleading.
So what can the government do under these circumstances?
Well, I think they've, as your previous callers were talking about, in a sense, they've kind of missed an opportunity already, because what they should have done was secured supply lines and taken visible action to secure supply lines before any of this happened. What they can do is try and regain the trust of the population, but that's not easy. They're going to have to change their behaviour quite dramatically, in my view, if they're going to do that. But I have to say, perhaps biased alert, I'm not really a fan of the government. The messaging needs to be very precise and very carefully thought out. So, for example, it's much better to tell people precisely what they're doing to address shortages, rather than just giving sort of bland comments like, "Oh no, there's nothing to worry about." If you tell people there's nothing to worry about, and then 10 minutes later they drive down the road past a huge queue at the petrol station, who are they going to believe? What they're seeing in front of their eyes, or the message from the government, which has already told them lots of things which they don't believe already. But petrol stations and supermarkets potentially could have take some steps which might help a bit. Again,
as we also heard that from one of the callers, it was when BP started. Actually, it was a petrol station owner. When BP made that announcement, I think it was on Thursday, that I think they were saying that there was some shortages. That's when the panic started. So, I mean, there should be a sort of panic buying summit, shouldn't there? Government, industry, consumer bodies all getting together saying, let's just calm down. Otherwise, I think we could be with this problem for some time to come.
Yeah, and it could get very bad. If this process continues, sometimes you can have a situation. I mean, the true kind of definition of panic buying really is when people do this when there is not a supply side shortage. So they create the demand side shortage. The demand, the increased demand, creates shortages which didn't exist in the first place. That's kind of true panic buying, really. We might still get there. We might still get there. I'm going to leave it there, Professor.
I
was going to say the situation is worse if there is a genuine supply side shortage, which actually looks to be the case at the moment because of the HGV problem.
Okay, Professor Richard Bentley, thank you very much for joining us. Let's go to Rosie in Woodley, which I believe is near Reading. Rosie, you're on the air.
Hello, good morning. I just forwarded. I was my first time caller. I just wanted to say I didn't really believe the hype of the media, and I thought, no, surely people are silly and selfish. But in the last sort of hour, I went to do some shopping, and sure as God, there's 2 petrol stations along the Wokingham Road in Woodley where the queues, all 3 petrol stations, are full of queues of cars behind going out onto the main road. And I just think we're coming through a pandemic. I thought we'd all learn to be more sort of caring and thoughtful towards each other. And I find it, I can't believe it. It's extraordinary because, like you say, it's not a fuel shortage. It's just the carriage of it and trying to get it to the pumps. And if everybody just got what they needed, everything would be fine. And I just people just need to be a bit more considerate, which they're not being. And also with BP having made their announcement, they know the minute they say to people, don't panic, everybody's going to panic. Maybe they could have worded it differently because...
And so there you were, you weren't panicking because you thought the media might be hyping it up a bit. We never do, by the way, but you thought that, understandably. And there you are on the road, and you see those lines, and now you're a little bit panicky, aren't you?
No, not really. I mean, my car's always on the road, as my family will tell you. I happen to use the car. I'm just going to wait for things to calm down, because surely they're going to carry this on for the next couple of days. But I just think people just need to be a bit more considerate. All those 3 lanes of cars and both the petrol stations, they can't all be down to the last petrol. I don't know why they're...
And Rosie, moment of truth there. If you got the chance to fill up now, suddenly there's a chink, will you do it?
No, God no. But that needs to do.
Rosie, you're an admirable citizen now. You obviously don't like driving very much. You quite like being at home and going on your bicycle. Listen, I'm going to leave it there, Rosie. Thank you very much. I've got a point there. Rosie in Woodley, near Reading. Thank you very much for your call. Tons of other callers. I will get to you as soon as I can. We're also going to be speaking to someone who was at the vigil last night for Sabina Nessa, the young teacher was killed in Southeast London last week. Very sad story there, and extremely poignant given the events earlier this year. I'm Matt Fly. This is LBC. The time is 11:48.
LBC. I'm Camilla Tominey, here on LBC, where disrupted people going about their daily business using very nefarious tactics, bringing the M25 to a standstill. Somebody had to witness their mother having a stroke and tried to get her to hospital, and she couldn't get there in time because of these protests. So this idea that these people are just cuddly people because they're middle class
products become. Fancy? So, what are you waiting for? Check your Nectar app to learn more about your prices. Smart Shop and digital Nectar registration required. Items subject to availability. Exclusions apply. Visit nectar.com/mynectar prices for more info.
So I saw Claire on Tuesday at the salon and she said,
I want to get a car for my husband.
and I said, that sounds like a fair trade. And she said,
No, I want to get him a sporty little convertible.
and I said, you need Cinch. And she said,
Cinch?
yeah, Cinch. Cinch lets you buy a quality check used car online. No haggling, with delivery included and a 14-day money-back guarantee. And she said,
So I'm the boss.
and I said, you're in the driving seat now, babe. Cinch. Cars without the faff. UK mainland delivery only. T's and C's apply.
How you feel tomorrow starts with a safe, spacious gym at Nuffield Health. With swimming pools, expert personal trainers, group exercise classes, and physios at your local centre. How you feel tomorrow starts today. Join today and get the rest of the month free. Search Nuffield Health Gyms. Facilities available in most gyms. 12-month commitments only. Visit nuffieldhealth.com/terms for details.
Find the credit card you've been looking for. Quick check won't affect your score. See if it's a yes. No need to guess with an Ocean credit card.
With a credit limit up to £1,500. Check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card. It only takes a minute. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. No annual fee. Get a credit limit of up to £1,500. Visit ocean.co.uk.
In a world ruled by speed, our destinies are decided by downloads. A hero has arrived. I meant Blue Sky Broadband Ultra Fast. It's 10 times faster than standard fiber, making everything you do online feel epic. The next generation of broadband is here. Blue Sky Broadband Ultra Fast.
Already available to 15.7% of UK homes around and more every day. Comparison of average download speed of Ultra Fast Plus versus standard fiber speeds measured through to csky.com.
This is LBC with Matt Fry.
I'm going to talk about the vigil that took place last night for Sabina Nessa, the 28-year-old teacher who was murdered in southeast London last week. We're going to talk to someone who was there in a minute. Very, very sad story that's really moved the public, much as the death of Sarah Everard did earlier this year. But I'm also going to carry on, obviously, talking about petrol. And one question that's really on my mind, also another one, very practical one, thanks to my producer, is what happens to medical deliveries, the delivery of medicines, which so many of us rely on? Is that also been affected? I can't see how it can't be affected. There are so many of you trying to contact the programme, so many of you are getting on air. Let me go to Steve in Plaistow. Steve, you're now on the air. What's your experience been with all this? you've got to put their wages up fast. You've got to train more of them, quickly. And we're a rather impatient lot, aren't we, Steve? Steve, stay on the line. I want to bring in Nick, who's in Kings Lynn. Nick, what's your opinion?
Yeah, hello. I'm a long-term, long-distance European and UK lorry driver. I've driven a number of different categories of ACV, and from your opening preamble, you listed the reasons why we think what's going wrong, and I will unequivocally say is a combination of both Brexit and bad government, which you listed, which after all, this bad government is only there because of Brexit. And
well, to be fair to myself, it was a question. Was it bad luck or bad government? And you clearly think it was the latter.
Well, I'm talking
Brexit has been a good thing, yeah? People are moaning about the jobs and the wages. Now Brexit is happening.
Make a U-turn if possible.
Of these people doing these jobs, which is going to drive the wages up, yeah? Which is good. Yeah, which is good.
Okay, Steve, you made that point earlier. Steve, sorry, you made that point earlier. Let Nick finish what he was going to say. Nick, you've got the answer.
If Brexit isn't the problem, why is Grant Shapps and Boris Johnson going back to Europe with the
straight across there?
Asking for European visas and things like that? Brexit is otherwise.
Hang on, Steve, let him finish. Stop it. Let Nick finish.
There's many other reasons as well. These extensions on these foreign trade deals and things like that, and in Northern Ireland and all that. There's a number of reasons why Brexit is a reason, and it's compounded by bad government, and there's a lot of other things. And
but Nick, if I could...
Kind of please me.